Welcome. We're here to speak to David this morning. David had a cochlear implant in February this year. We're now 7 months post-surgery, and we're going to explore the journey from the decision making, the experience of the surgery, and life since the surgery. So thank you for joining us today, David. David, I would say when I met you, a one-to-one conversation was even very difficult. And I think that's what, when I started to ask with you prior to your last hearing aids and suggest that maybe hearing aids were no longer enough, and I started to make noises about cochlear implant, and I thought you would be a candidate, and how did you feel about that? I definitely felt when I first met you that you was really struggling. Not in groups, even one-to-one with me. And usually I've been speaking to people with hearing loss for over 30 years, and most people can follow my conversation. I really felt you were struggling.
Well, I had managed with hearing aids for many years. I could use the telephone and I could converse one-to-one, and in limited meetings. The noisy environments, as I mentioned, were a real problem, and certainly confusion and embarrassment and frustration on my part were never far away. And that continued for many years. But hearing aids served me very well throughout my working life. And it was really only into my late 60s that I began to notice a more rapid worsening in my hearing. Conversations were becoming difficult, especially with my family and my young grandsons. And I was beginning to feel more and more isolated. So I began to think about cochlear implants in as much as I knew about them, but really I hadn't thought about it any more than that until I actually came to see your good self, which stemmed from a friend of mine mentioning that I should speak to a lady who had implant experience within her own family. So I did come to see you initially to review my hearing, with a view perhaps to getting a new aid, which I thought I needed at the time. But we got on to talking about implants, and that was really part of my objective at the time. And you surprised me by saying that you could refer me direct, whereas I had always thought that I would have to go through the ENT clinic, which at the time I was waiting to see, to talk about implants generally and what other options might be available to me. So, as I say, I was surprised, and you did refer me.
You was the first person I'd referred onto the implant program, because I'd been at a conference in Manchester and met cochlear implant champions, and they gave us a referral criteria and said that they would take referrals from private hearing aid dispensers. I was as surprised as you are, and I didn't realise it would work so seamlessly and so efficiently. I was as surprised as you, I have to say. Very happily. Can we go back to when you was making a decision about whether to go for an implant? I'd given you some information, said I was going to refer you. What was going through your mind about having an implant? What fears did you have?
Well, I was very sceptical, to be honest, and rather reticent, and I went for the assessment with some reluctance. I wasn't sure it would benefit me. I wasn't even sure it would work. But the assessment process was very reassuring. The people at the centre were excellent, and they explained the whole process very carefully. And I took a lot of reassurance from that. And having learned of experiences of other people who had already gone down that route and realised the number of people who had gone down that route, I became much more relaxed and even excited about the process.
Did you have a fear?
I certainly did, yes, because I knew that the surgery would mean I would likely lose what hearing I had in my good right ear. Yeah. So that was a major concern, and I knew that would be irreversible, and therefore hearing aids would never be possible in the future. I was also bothered by the fact that there's a 4-week waiting period between surgery and switch on, that's right, if you like, and that was a bit of a worry, but because I would have no hearing. But my wife and I coped through a combination of basic lip reading, sign language, smoke signals, writing things down, and we both had apps on our phones which provided speech to text, which was quite useful in the car. Yeah, they were good.
So can you talk a little bit now about implant day, the surgery and leading up to that?
Yes, having got the date for the surgery, I had to go to the hospital the day before. The staff were wonderful, and I was first up the next day, and I remember it all in some detail, the preparation and going down to the surgery, down to the theatre area itself. I met again with the surgeon and the anaesthetist to have a final discussion and sign the relevant forms, and then literally walked into the theatre. Were prepared on the operating theatre, and then, to be honest, I woke up in the recovery area. Yeah. It was so quick. Back on the ward, I met with the surgeon and anaesthetist again, who confirmed that everything seemed to have gone okay. And I then spent the rest of the day recovering, if you like, and then they said I could go home. So
2-3 days?
I went in the night before and I was released the following evening. Okay. So I was in one night. And I went home. After effects were some mild headaches. I had some dizziness, both of which disappeared within a week or so.
Good. You had to wait a month between the surgery and the switch on. Can we go back to the day of the switch on and tell us a bit about that?
Well, after 4 weeks, things were getting a little tense. I arrived at the hospital and met the lady technician scientist who was taking me through the process. By this stage, the feeling of the implant in my head had disappeared. It had settled down. The ear was healing quite nicely. She presented me with the hearing aid, if you like. They call it the processor. Yeah. And this sits on the ear and is connected to the implant via a magnet, really. Yeah. And she provided me with this. And then there was a little bit of time where she was playing with a machine, tuning it in, and all I could hear were strange beeps and whirs and so on. And then she warned me that she was about to switch it on. She did so. She banged the desk and asked me if I could hear anything. And I could. I heard that, and I could hear speech and everything that was going on around me in a fairly tight room, of course. So it was much easier.
Yeah.
Outside isn't quite the same.
No.
But I found I could hear everything that was being said. It was a bit strange at times, but I was very lucky. It worked for me right from the off. I did find I could hear two levels of sound. There was the normal sound that you might expect. I could recognize voices, okay, and I've never had any problems with that, but there was like a very high-pitched echo at the same time. But I have to say, over the months, that's gradually disappeared. It's still there, but I can manage it, and it doesn't bother me.
Any standout moment in those first few weeks when you heard something that you hadn't heard and it was a bit of a wow moment?
Well, hearing birds while I was out walking was a very early benefit.
Yeah.
My wife told me one day that she'd been speaking to our daughter, who had said that she had had a conversation with me that lasted more than 5 minutes for the first time in years.
Oh.
And that was quite emotional.
Yes.
And there was one instance where I was sitting in the kitchen and I suddenly thought, I can hear my watch ticking, which is something that I hadn't heard for decades. Yeah. So that was, for me,
Beautiful. Yeah.
interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's been 7 months since the implant, 6 months since the switch on. How many appointments have you had?
Yes, after the switch on date, you have to go back 7 days later for a further tuning session, if you like. And then I think it was a couple of months after that, I had to go back again, and that tuning session also included a hearing test. Not dissimilar to the hearing test that I had to undertake on the very first assessment. So there was a comparison, and I was startled to learn how much better I managed on that second hearing test. And
when you look back now, how do you feel about the decision you made to go forward with an implant?
Well, for me, it was the right decision. My hearing was definitely getting worse. One of the things that the surgeon said to me was that not only did he feel confident it would help me, but that it would stabilize my hearing, which is something that I hadn't really thought about previously. And that was very reassuring. I now know that, all being well, I will have a manageable level of hearing for the rest of my life. Yeah. My family and friends all think that I hear much better than I used to. It's not without its difficulties. It's not perfect by any means, but it is much better and a distinct step up for me. My friends and family think I'm more involved now. We're in social situations rather than perhaps drifting into the background trying to pretend to be awake. Yeah. So yeah, overall, I have no doubts that it was the way forward for me.
But meeting those people reassured you that you were in you know, in the right place, and they were confident that they could help you. So actually meeting the cochlear implant team, even if somebody gets to that point, will help them focus the mind and decision.
To be honest, it's the thought of going through the surgeries was a little scary. I was terrified. But again, I kept thinking back to the number of people I knew had already gone through the process. I don't have an actual number, but at the centre they have photographs of all the recipients, and there are hundreds. I was quite shocked. They haven't asked for my photograph yet, but maybe one day. That was reassuring.
Yeah.
The sheer volume of people who have gone through the process, and not just in this country, but around the world. Yeah. So go for the assessment. You've got nothing to lose.
Thank you so much, David, for sharing your journey with us today. It's given me a much deeper understanding, and I'm sure everybody else watching this, hearing a personal perspective of life before the implant, your decision, the surgery, the 6 months after switch on. It's invaluable, that information, and thank you very much for sharing that with us today. Thank you.